meeting would you wish to take next?
Which meeting?
Joint Council and Housing?
Can I just...
One second. Looking at the top of the minutes for the housing for February 7th, it says absent Sinanian, but it was partially absent.
You attended.
Someone was absent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When the roll was taken, and then you came in
Thank
to the
you,
latter
sir.
half.
Okay. I'll call to order the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and Glendale Housing Authority. Roll call, please.
Council members Garpetian,
Here.
Najarian, Sinanian,
Here?
Mayor Devine.
Here.
For authority members Devine,
Here.
Garpetian,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Najarian, Parazian,
Here.
Chair Sinanian.
Here.
The agenda for the February 14, 2017 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on Friday, February 10, 2017 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. For you, City Manager, regarding consideration of support for Measure H, Los Angeles County Plan to Prevent and Combat Homelessness. 1A is a resolution supporting Measure H, the Los Angeles County Plan to Prevent and Combat Homelessness, a quarter-cent special sales tax to fund homeless services.
Thank you. Mr. Cho, I see that Ms. Powers is here.
I think she's ready to give you an overview of this measure that'll be on the ballot next month.
Good afternoon, Housing Authority members, council members. Christine Powers from the City Manager's Office. So 1 year ago, the LA County Board of Supervisors approved the Homeless Initiative Plan, which is the most comprehensive effort by the county to address homeless issues here in LA. The plan was developed through an inclusive process that included 88 cities, including Glendale, and offers a coordinated set of strategies to help over 45,000 homeless individuals throughout the county and to prevent homelessness for thousands of others. When approving this plan, the board approved one-time funds of $100 million to initiate implementation of this plan, which is currently being utilized. The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LAHSA, conducted an analysis afterwards and projected that the ongoing unmet need for homeless services is $450 million, and that doesn't include any construction costs. So in order to fund this gap in resources for the initiative, the Board of County Supervisors unanimously approved an ordinance that would go on the March 7th agenda election, known as Measure H, and that would enact a 1/4 cent special sales tax for homeless services. The measure is projected to generate approximately $350 million a year, and that would cover the gap in services that LAHSA outlined. And the tax would be levied throughout LA County, including Glendale, for a 10-year period. Of the initiatives, there are 21 initiatives that will be covered by Measure H funding. And earlier this month, the board approved a Measure H revenue planning process, which establishes a planning process group that will develop recommendations to the board as to how to spend this money. So currently, with Measure H, there is no specific funding plan. That will be determined between the months of March through May through this revenue planning committee, and they will make recommendations to the county in June as to how that money should be spent, and then the county board of supervisors will be approving that. As far as the composition of this planning group that is detailed in the report, it will be led by the County Office of Homelessness and does include representation from several county departments and LAHSA. Each supervisor does get to appoint a member of the faith-based community, and the City of Glendale is working to have support from the COG. So each COG will have representation, a Council of Governments. The City of Glendale is part of the San Fernando Valley COG. Our staff has been working very closely with the executive director of the COG to see if a Glendale staff person can go and sit on this planning process committee, and that will be considered by the COG March 16th at its upcoming meeting, should Measure H pass. There are also 12 regional homeless provider representatives. This includes a rep from each service planning area. The service planning area that Glendale's in is a very, very large area. About a year ago, this regional homeless provider representatives were selected when the initiative was adopted, and our service planning area's representative is LA Family Housing. They have offices in Sunland and North Hollywood, and we do work closely with them to provide referrals when appropriate. Cities that have formally supported Measure H include Baldwin Park, Carson, El Monte, Inglewood, Long Beach, Los Angeles, Pasadena, Pomona, Redondo Beach, Santa Monica, and West Hollywood. And tonight, City Council of Burbank will be considering this item as well. Additionally, both Essentia and Door of Hope, who are two of our local homeless services providers, their boards have supported Measure H, as well as the Los Angeles County Division of the League of California Cities. That concludes my report. Staff is here from Community Services and Parks, as well as CDD, and I believe Natalie Camaro from Essentia is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have two cards, so I'll call them up first. Linda Pillsbury. Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Linda Pillsbury. I both live and work in Glendale, and I've had a long time interest in homelessness. We all know there's a problem here in LA County. We all drive by the tents that are under the freeway passes. We see people in cars. And although in Glendale it appears to be less visible, it's still prevalent. It's a quarter-cent sales tax is not very much to ask. The money will be raised to be used for services, things like case management, job training, mental health services that help people actually make a start again. So I wholeheartedly hope that our city can, join the other cities in the area to support Measure H.
Thank you. Thank you. Natalie Kimura.
Hello, I'm Natalie Kimura, Executive Director of Essentia. For those who don't know, Essentia is the coordinated entry system for the Glendale Continuum of Care, and we support the Service Planning Area 2, which is the San Fernando Valley Coordinated Entry System, and the Northeast LA Coordinated Entry System, and we also provide services in the city of West Hollywood. The Essentia Board of Directors has voted to approve or support Measure H because we're in an unprecedented moment. We have never seen if you will, at the Board of Supervisors, unanimous support for something of this type and coordination with the City of Los Angeles. The City of Los Angeles passed Measure HHH in November with 77% of the vote to provide capital funding, which is going to be critically important as well. This measure is countywide and would help us with services funding in the city of Glendale and elsewhere in Los Angeles County. We do share concerns about whether this money would make it back to Glendale. That's a legitimate concern. However, we couldn't have this conversation if the money doesn't pass. So we want to emphasize the importance of supporting Measure H. Let's get it passed, and let's continue to be vigilant about ensuring that this funding does come to areas that are not always so well represented in the homeless funding scheme. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Natalie, we're now servicing Burbank and is it Tahunga? What's the other area? Someone that we're
Well, Essentia has historically about half our clients come from outside the city of Glendale, and I think that's a really critical issue that should be pushed back, particularly on the city of Los Angeles, because there tends to be a very bright line drawn between the city of Los Angeles and agencies that aren't in the city. We are, as you know, on the border of Los Angeles, and so literally I will back out my car every day in the city of LA to go home. So we are concerned about the way the funding is routed. So, for example, we have to participate in the Service Planning Area 2 coordinated entry system, which includes Tahunga, the eastern part of the San Fernando Valley, actually westward. The Service Area 2 is enormous. It goes up to Santa Clarita and further. So it's not a small geographic area by any stretch. And the other piece of this is that the funding is being routed through leads in each of these 8 service planning areas. So organizations like Essentia that are smaller and more localized have to work with the larger organizations and hope that the funding and the priorities will align with what we need to do locally. So that's our challenge.
Any other?
Yes.
So
there will be a committee to, after the measure passes, if it passes, there will be a committee to decide how the funding is going to be distributed. Am I correct?
That's my understanding. Tomorrow there's a meeting that I'm going to go to find out a little bit more about what they intend to do and how they intend to structure the funding. I do think historically the challenge is that there's historically been a disconnect between how funding is prioritized and the mechanisms for getting it out to the street. And so one of the unspoken things is what the request for proposal process really looks like and how they attempt to sort of operationalize their priorities in that funding scheme. And that's where the challenges, I think, have been in part. The other part is to what extent, and this is the concern of our board, to what extent is funding going to be retained by county agencies and by the LA Homeless Services Authority and not be routed out to nonprofit organizations that are doing the work on the ground?
And that's where I was going to, because I don't know how is it going to be based on needs, because different cities have different number of homeless people and different needs, level of needs, or it will be based on population, because if you have 200,000 people paying 0.25% on taxes and we get basically, I don't know, nothing at the end of the day, I don't think it's fair to the community. I just wanted to make sure that we are going to fight to bring some of these dollars back to the city, because we have the same issues as City of LA and every other city does. Maybe in a smaller level, because we were proactive in dealing with our problems instead of letting it grow and become a nuisance, then try to do something about it. But I think that's something that we need to make sure we have a representative on the COG, from the COG on the committee. So afterward, because when it passes, it's passed already. And there's a sunset clause that says 10 years. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's I think one of the mechanisms that we can take it back. And after 10 years, it has to be put to vote again, or it just dies.
Well, it sunsets. Ideally, we would find a better way to fund this rather than putting it on sales tax. I mean, sales tax base can only withstand so much taxation, and to the extent online sales are eating away, that pie is getting smaller each year. So it's, as Natalie says, I think it's better to argue over a problem that you have versus not have that problem of funding in the first place. But I think we should all be realistic enough to notice that the way that we're funding this really is not the most intelligent way to do it, let alone the mechanics, as you're pointing out, that we're trying to put the revenue in place, the funding stream in place, and then we'll figure out how we're going to share that on a regional basis. To your point, from the San Fernando Valley COG to the extent Natalie and members of our staff really are kind of the tip of the spear on the continuum of care, we are pushing to have Peter Zovac, our Deputy Director of Housing, and Yvette Samvelian, our Senior, I'm sorry, Yvette, I can't remember the fancy title that you have now, but our Homeless Services Supervisor, be the people that are representing this area on that steering committee, and they will fight tooth and nail.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say your point about where the funding goes based on need is well taken. The city of Burbank was it has been and continues to be part of the Los Angeles continuum of care, but for 20 years, even though their need was counted as part of the funding formula that came to that continuum, they got no money because they didn't have infrastructure in the city of Burbank to receive it. They didn't have an organization that was applying for that money to take advantage of that opportunity. So this is part of the issue with funding homeless services. If there isn't an infrastructure in place, then that funding is not going to go to that community. In Glendale, we have that.
We do have it, yes.
We have it, and Ascensia isn't the only provider. Door of Hope and Salvation Army and others, Catholic Charities, are others that are participating in the continuum of care. And so we're positioned much better than other communities are.
Councilor Sinanian?
So clearly there's a need for this funding. Clearly it's a serious and escalating problem. And clearly, just as with Measure M, the fairness of the amount of money being levied from Glendale and the proportional amount of money coming back for funding homelessness and homelessness-related housing issues, I would say. I mean, it sounds like the idea is a good idea. Let's fund this problem. Let's find a financial solution to the problem. But it doesn't seem like they've defined the terms as to what, how it's going to get funded or who's going to get funded, how much they're going to fund it, which is a little troublesome. It's troublesome because again, people say homeless and they sort of have a specific image in of what it is that they're thinking of. But nowadays, increasingly, you hear about families, even in Glendale, who are living in their car. I mean, this is becoming an everyday problem that's impacting not only individuals with substance abuse issues or returning veterans with PTSD and people who just hard on their luck, but it's like families are being priced out of their homes. So it's a serious problem. We have to be vigilant and be on top of how the money is allocated. I think we're going to have to fight for the money when the time comes. And we have to be ready to get our fair share and make sure that not only the problem that is currently in Glendale is addressed, but the problem that can be prevented is also prevented. Having said that, I mean, I know. Yeah, good. And a quick question. So, does this make the sales tax in LA County, let's say Measure H passes, are we going to be like 10 1/4 now? Because the Measure M just added half a quarter, half a percent.
Right. And
are we like the highest in the country now?
I don't know if we'd be the highest in the country, but it would be significant. Christine, do you have that breakdown?
To answer your question, Councilmember Sinanian, as of April 1st, due to the Measure M increase, it will be 9.25%. So this, and I believe this would go into effect July 1st should it pass, so then we'll be at 9.5%. I'm not quite sure if we're the highest in the county.
You sure those numbers?
These are the numbers we got from...
Because Measure R got subsumed, it basically became extended, got subsumed. The quarter rate that we had, what was it before Measure M?
You had
Before Measure
Prop
M?
A, Prop C, Measure R, Measure M.
It's at 8.75% is what it was before.
It was 8.75.
Right.
Half a percent.
Okay.
And then a
On
quarter
top of that
cent.
is
So
9.25.
9.5. Okay.
I believe that's what it is, but we'll confirm. But that's
Okay.
you
Yeah,
took that one off.
these
the
are
state.
we got. These
Okay.
are what we got from HDL.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're approaching 10%.
And you got to figure there are some cities out there that have their own local
that's
half-cent
right.
sales
Like
tax.
Long Beach, I think.
Yeah, El Monte, some of these other cities that have it. Pretty soon, it starts to make a difference, especially if you have those big purchases, auto dealers.
Any other comments? Councilmember Najjar?
defer to
Oh, I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr. Kelly, sure.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I have the same problem with this that I had with the Glendale having to wait in line for the 9% tax issue that we dealt with last week. Us having the, for Northern California getting first crack at that, and us kind of waiting in line. My point here is that, we have the highest performing agency probably in the country, 18 consecutive years of being a #1 rated housing authority. Our community development block grant is consistently, we squeeze every penny out of that block grant. We feed and water 11 agencies. It doesn't seem fair that we have to wait in line or wonder about how much money is coming back to us from this. So that's my issue with it.
This is a LA County tax, has nothing to do with Northern California. But
No, I was
point
just
well
pointing
taken,
out,
yeah.
I had
Oh, yeah,
a
of
problem with
course.
that as well.
Point well taken, of course.
Councilmember Najarian?
Thank you. I do want to echo some of those concerns raised by Councilman Sinanian. So, on our last two successful sales tax increases, and they were transportation measures, Measure R and Measure M, there were specific and transparent projects and fund allocations for the funds that were coming in. The problem is we don't see that here. What we see is a committee, a planning group, which will only be developing recommendations to give to the Board of Supervisors. There's no guarantee that Glendale will be getting its fair share. Let's just go back to when Prop 13 came in, when we kept our, because we were a well-run and conservative, fiscally conservative city, we had our property tax rates very low. When Prop 13 passed, they said, oh, Glendale, you're okay with that amount. We're going to keep that level for you, reimbursement for you. Whereas cities who were not as well-run, ended up getting a much larger share and continue to get that much larger share until today. There are few cities, I think, that pay as much attention to the homelessness as Glendale does. Glendale takes it very seriously. So what I don't want, what I'm afraid will happen, is that they'll look at Glendale and say, oh, Glendale, you've got a line item in your budget, you guys are fine, but the city of Alhambra, you guys haven't been doing anything. You need more money than the city of Glendale. So I don't want our commitment to homelessness and our commitment of funds and resources towards homelessness work against us when this money is getting split up. I am in favor, that being said, I am in favor of this measure, but it is in many respects a leap of faith that we will be getting our fair share of homelessness. In fact, I would argue that we should be getting more than any other city that is not committed to the resources, because we have shown that commitment and we have the track records of success in developing programs for the homeless. So those are just my comments. I hope that the Board of Supervisors that they act judiciously and not hold our commitment, our current commitment towards resolving the homeless issue against us when they decide to distribute funds to other cities. And that's just the way I feel.
Razia?
With all of those concerns, but to me, it's the worthiest cause, and I believe it will pass. The measure of age will pass. That's all.
I think it's 2/3. Correct. So.
Well, I feel that what I've heard, I think we all are on the same page. The fact that we want to make sure that our community receives funding that we deserve, and that we're not put down at the bottom of the list and just get piecemeal. We have to make sure that the money is allocated equitably. I think, again, it's better to get some than none. I think I read that this would cost the average household $1 a month as far as the tax is concerned. And, I said to my husband, it's $1 a month. It's not that bad. Yes, that's what the research has shown. So I think for preventative programs, support programs, especially the mental illness part of it, trying to find jobs and housing, I think it's well worth supporting this measure. And I hope that we will stand up for our community and get that representation that we want and that I feel that we deserve. And so with that, I'll take a motion for
I'll move the item.
in support.
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Council members Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes, and housing?
There's no motion for housing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council's
Oh, this is just, okay, all right.
suffices.
Thank you, then it passes. Let's see, next
Need
item.
motions for adjournment for council.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We are adjourned.
And for authority?
No more.
And motion and second to adjourn authority?
Second.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Yes.
That's very good. Okay. Next will be the special meeting of the Glendale City Council.